Concerns over rising COVID-19 infection rates linked to the Delta strain are pushing back return to office dates for many companies. According to the New York Times, management teams are faced with tough decisions about reversing reopening plans or whether to implement vaccine mandates for employees as the highly contagious variant continues to spread. Many companies like Apple and Google have already delayed their return dates until later this year. But ride-sharing app Lyft has pushed its return date to 2022. For more on this, let's bring in New York Times reporter Lauren Hirsch. Lauren, good to see you. So the Times also announced on Friday that it has indefinitely postponed its plans to return to the Bureau. What led to this decision, and what is the thinking of management with regards to that choice?
I can't speak to the Times specifically, but I can speak more broadly about what's going on in corporate America, which is employers were really hoping that by the time we got to the fall, which is when school is opening, we could be beyond this issue. They could finally bring people back to the office. They were so excited to go to a sense of norm, and they're very worried about this Delta variant, in part because with the new CDC guidance, now there's this whole new issue they need to deal with of, are you going to have your vaccinated employees in the office and make them wear masks? And a lot of people don't want to go into the office if they have to wear a mask. And employers don't want to send the message that the office isn't safe, that one would have to wear a mask. So rather than towing that line and dealing with those issues, a number of employers, you mentioned Google, Apple, they're delaying return to office so they cannot have to sort through all of the new questions that have really come up over the past week or so.
And I think even more sort of thorny than wearing a mask or not wearing a mask is whether or not you should mandate that, your employees be vaccinated, especially employees that are regularly dealing with the public. It seems like, employers are hesitant to embrace this idea.
Absolutely. So this has been the number one issue in boardrooms, I would say, over the past year, which is whether or not to mandate vaccines. And a lot of employers would like to mandate vaccines. It gives them a bit of peace of mind to an extent because they can bring their employees back into the office as they want. And many of them, particularly in industries like finance, are really eager to do that. But the problem is they're really worried about pushback and they're really worried about losing workers. So Walmart, for example, is mandating vaccines for its corporate headquarters, but not for its stores. And I asked Walmart why the discrepancy. They didn't tell me. But one thing that a number of professors and industry consultants have pointed out is, well, there's a labor shortage. Walmart likely is concerned about losing employees if they mandate it. And so there's this little bit of a emerging divide right now happening, at least for now. It could change, but there's an emerging divide happening between how companies are treating their white collar workforce and those in the front line. Another big issue in this debate is the unions. A lot of times companies who are considering mandates have to negotiate with the union. So it could be that some employers are in the midst of that, and we see more announcements in the coming weeks putting down mandates for frontline workers. But right now, a big question that I'm wondering and a big situation I'm watching is whether or not these mandates will ultimately fall down to those who are most exposed.
Yeah, Lauren, earlier...
Hey, Lauren, just a quick question. I mean, you may not know this or not. Sorry, Vlad, you may not know this. I was just thinking about Walmart. Do you know if Walmart provides health care coverage for their part-time workers in the stores? I just wondered if, whether or not your health coverage is employer provided versus you got to figure it out on your own, if that may be also something that companies are considering, that they may feel more empowered to ask their employees to get vaccinated if they're also the ones taking care of their health care. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I don't know the specific for Walmart, but I can say the whole idea of healthcare coverage and that parlaying into mandate is this whole other thorny issue because it gets into HIPAA, honestly. And so if you are overly incentivizing employees that are under your healthcare coverage to be vaccinated, then you need to make sure you're giving those who are not vaccinated kind of equal opportunity. So it almost opens up like a whole new can of. But it's a really good question.
Lauren, Danny Meyer was here earlier this morning on CBS This Morning, and as you know, he is the head of this hospitality group that founded Shake Shack, but also Gramercy Tavern, Blue Smoke, a lot of great institutions, restaurants in New York City. And he is implementing a policy whereby all of his employees have to be vaccinated, but if you want to also go to his restaurants, patrons have to be vaccinated. And I was asking him a little bit about this, and it was interesting. His perspective had more to do with his employees. He wants them safe. They are every day facing people who may be unvaccinated, and he wants to keep them safe. And that's part of the reason why he decided to do this. And I wondered if that is also, in your reporting, if you come across people who are leading these businesses or thinking about that. I mean, Anne-Marie mentioned these are frontline facing people. It's not enough that they be vaccinated. Mr. Myers wants everybody who comes into his restaurant to be vaccinated so he doesn't put his staffers at risk. And for folks who are not happy about that, they don't have to eat at any of his establishments.
Absolutely. And you saw Governor Cuomo just this morning urging more employers to do that, to have vaccine-only mandates. Again, it gets into this little bit of a complicated issue of who are your customers, and that's probably how these executives are going to be weighing these decisions. So they are doing, Union Hospitality Group is doing it, but they're not doing it for Shake Shack.
Right.
And that's interesting, right? Because that's probably where it would have the most impact and, quite frankly, could be the biggest business risk. And so I think you will see more companies think about doing this, but you're not going to see companies thinking about doing this if they're you're not going to see companies thinking about doing this if they're really worried about losing business. And so again, you might see a little bit of a divide where companies are doing it, where it makes a difference on the margin, but it's not going to be all of a sudden we're at risk of losing 50% of our customers. Yeah,
I should point out that Shake Shack is publicly traded, so he doesn't really have a say as to what that policy would be. But for the restaurants where he is still in charge, like Blue Smoke and Gramercy Tavern and Union Square Cafe, those are the places that he's implementing this policy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you mentioned throughout this conversation the worker shortage. We have discussed here on CBSN what's being called the Great Resignation, perhaps on the horizon, where workers sort of are a little choosier about the jobs that they're taking moving forward, not being willing to just sort of take the job that they had pre-pandemic as soon as it's offered. They want more money, they want more flexibility. Maybe, you know, they've been working from home and they realize that this work-life balance thing is working for them. I just read an article over the weekend where, you know, a woman said she didn't really realize until she was out of the office for a year how bad, you know, work in the office was for her health. And perhaps she was being exposed to chemicals that she didn't know about, and she hasn't been sick in a year and a half, and she realizes that maybe this is a better route. So I wonder just how much of this is factoring in for employers when they're kind of considering what the move back to the office will look like, whether or not they are, you know, seriously considering maybe a hybrid model if it works for them, out of fear that their former employees simply won't want to come back.
It's a huge issue. And, you know, I cover a lot of, I cover deals, I cover finance, and banks are really grappling with this because they have lost so many junior employees this year because banking's pretty miserable if you're, I mean, it's always tough, but you do it for the money. When you're working from home and you're not going out to dinners, drinks, and seeing your colleagues, it's particularly miserable. And a lot of these bankers don't want to go back into the office. And so, and they're kind of, they're wearing the pants now. A lot of these companies are dealing with employees, to your point, that are saying, I can just quit. And again, you're seeing it go a little bit both ways, where on the one hand, with the remote work, you do lose the loyalty, the camaraderie, and employers are afraid about losing more employees that way. On the other hand, employees, you know, at Apple, we spoke to someone at Apple who was like, well, I'm not going to go back, I'll just quit. So what do you do? And the answer, I think some employers are hoping, is hybrid, but even that it's really very much untested and brings up a whole other host of issues. So employers are in a very tough spot right now.
Yeah, you know, the nature of hybrid is, what does it look like? Does it look like you come in to work 3 days a week, or you come in a couple times a month just to kind of have face-to-face time with what the team that you're working with or with your bosses, or it's choose your own adventure moving forward.
I wanted to be, you know, best of both worlds. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I I was just going to say that, the goal is best of both worlds, but I think the fear is it worst of all worlds? Because we don't really know what it's, to your point, what it's actually going to look like.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting, too, with real estate. Because we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of real estate. I'm specifically thinking about New York City, obviously, but this is the center of banking. You mentioned banking, Lauren. New York City is the center of banking and finance in this country. The media is centered here. And so it will be interesting to see what ultimately the ramifications of that, beyond just whether or not people should be in the office or not, what the long-term economic implications of that will mean if you've got, thousands and thousands of feet of office space that is not occupied. That I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that, Lauren. I don't know if I don't even know if we're at this point, those of us who are reporters, even able to dig into that kind of number, because it really calls for some long-term economic outlooks.
So it's definitely
complicated because, cities have given companies tax breaks to encourage them to come into the downtown core. I mean, there are cities that we've been to, all of us have been to, where the downtown core is vacant, where as soon as 5 o'clock hits, it's a ghost town. And so cities have been working really hard across the country to breathe life into these areas. And, what if suddenly it's unnecessary to go downtown? What happens? What is the domino effect? Sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
No, but that's exactly it. It's not only offices, it's the lunch places, it's the food trucks. It has a complete ripple effect. One of the interesting nuances with the real estate question and corporate real estate is a lot of these leases tend to be long-term. And so we might not fully see the impact until, maybe even 5 years out when we see some of these long-term leases potentially run out. So it is people in the real estate industry tend to be exceptionally optimistic, sometimes annoyingly so when you're a reporter, because they always give you the sunniest outlook. But people are concerned. People definitely think that if it could have not only impact office real estate, but trickle down to those that rely on people being in the office for their business.
Lauren Hirsch, really great talking to you. I feel like the title of your next article is going to be, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Looking at hybrid moving forward." I'll give you that. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.